the son of a minor baron who was a Detroit auto worker and longtime member of the Communist Party, who, when family members with more, let's say, wherewithal, I grew up in what you would call semi-abject poverty.
Now, this is Gordon Duff, the editor of Colonel Gordon Duff, Marine Colonel Gordon Duff, retired, editor of Veterans Today, and he's going to be telling you everything's going on, trying to get this all recorded, get it all up. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Began calling my father Lord Lockhart. He went into an incredible rage. But family-wise, I have claim to 2 dukedoms and a couple other titles I have reasonable claim to. According to, we have a family genealogist, and a Hatton McDuff, son of Lockhart. If you get into this stuff, I'm a Hatton McDuff from Hatton Castle, north of Aberdeen, son of Lockhart Duff, and that dates back to when the family were the Thanes of Inverness in the 1600s. But in Scotland, they keep records of everything, and whatever Scottish royalty or whatever, and they take this stuff seriously in Britain, seriously to the point that if you want a title, you can buy one on eBay, mind you. That's how seriously they take it. But once you've bought one on eBay, you're a big deal. And while I spend a lot of time. I work in London. I have an office in London, and we have a facility. I work for an aerospace company, and we're London headquartered. So I have an office in the city, right off the Strand, and we have facilities out in Essex. We have a little office building out there, which is let's say east of London, north and east, in an area north of the Thames estuary. Nice little town, lots of potatoes grown and stuff like this. Good pub and restaurant in town. So we'll not mention the town because it doesn't need to be mentioned because there's too many people listening here. But nice, and I like it there. This is England, and I spent lots and lots of time there. And I, as a senior citizen, driving around on the wrong side of the road and going to boot sales, it's basically garage sales, as it were, and charity shops buying junk. And when you buy junk in Britain, you can at least get really, really old junk. And touristing around, I enjoy. The weather, not always that good. The food, absolutely abysmal. Beer's fine. I like the people there. And Scotland is not the most pleasant place on earth. I mean, it's beautiful. And the people are okay. Ireland is beautiful, and the people are amazing. The Scots are a serious group, okay, and who've been run through an awful lot. And all the worst or best thing I can say is I'm one of them, whatever it is. And you don't go to Scotland and push anybody around. Nor in Ireland, by the way. No matter how big or tough you think you are, go start a fight in a pub, and somebody 135 pounds with boxing skills beyond anything you can imagine will pepper you until you're unrecognizable. Big surprise. It's the last place on earth you want to pretend you're a tough guy is Ireland. Have tremendous time in Ireland. Love the people there. And they've gone through a lot of economic downturns. They had seen a lot of boom. And now it's again, young people are leaving Ireland because they have no jobs here in the U.S. Young people are staying here because they have no jobs and they have nowhere to go. You certainly can't run easily to Canada, although I can see why people may have wanted to do that at some point. And Mexico's not a good decision. Here in America, and you don't have a job and you don't have prospects, and that's all you guys out there, sorry about that, you're screwed. And I wish we hadn't done it to you. And
well, Gordon, you can't say you did it to him. It's this Israeli crime syndicate along with the Bush crime syndicate.
Well, stuff going on here. First thing I want to go after today is you guys always get, because this is radio and the FCC, I don't get to use the language that the Marine Corps language I would. I want to take a little shot at the daily cost. And the daily cost is supposedly a milquetoast website that gets a lot of political and economic things correct within its range. Or, they do blame a lot of the right people for the right things. It gets progressive. Now, what we've found today, we've got this issue with Lee Wanta. Let me give some background to those, and I think all of you are going to be regular listeners here. I'd like to think we have new ones, and there'll be between 2 and 3 million of you minimally out there, so don't feel you're very alone if you're listening to this. Lee Wanta grew up in Milwaukee. He was a tool and die maker, 2-year degree in mechanical engineering. Lee Wanta, for whatever reason, and he's on with us periodically, fanatic patriot, fanatic Roman Catholic, absolutely. Funny guy. An intelligent and economic warfare expert, perhaps the best in the world in that area. And the mild-mannered and very decent Lee Wanta played in a larger world stage than almost anyone ever has, as working with William Casey and President Reagan. And at the time, I worked as part of this effort for one of the government agencies, and I will tell you at a much lower level than Mr. Wanta. It was a job to undermine the Russian economy and end the Cold War. And my own job was to arrange penetration of Russian banking through approaching, and I won't go too far into this, this is many, many years ago, through approaching the heads of banks in Belarus, what was in Leningrad, the Russian commercial bank there, Estonia, Latvia, and Ukraine, and to aid them and certain elements of what was in the KGB to cooperate with us in when things were going to hit the fan in Russia. We wanted to be able to turn capital around, and the way we bought our way in to the KGB initially was shipping in through Poland, Gdansk. This is all wonderfully classified stuff for you guys. We began moving Marlboro cigarettes by the container load into Russia, initially in a trade program for high-end vodka, but then just plain smuggling. And in doing so, we had turned those individuals responsible for overseeing some telecommunications capabilities and certain border stations between Poland and Russia. Because, I'll tell you, a pack of Marlboro cigarettes decades and decades ago, you could buy Russia for one of those things. As far as American cigarettes go around the world, Marlboros are the worshipped brand. And the containers we were getting, and Marlboro didn't like this, by the way. This was coming out of a Greek-owned vending company in Detroit. And we were supplying those, and I remember sitting there with people from, I was representing an agency. The head of the Republican Party was with me, along with a Detroit nightclub owner. I remember who did the introduction with what you'd say were, you could see ties to organized crime if you wanted. But that kind of detailed stuff, you know, you don't get to hear this stuff right away or all the time or whatever. But it's to Wanta here, going back to the Wanta story. Wanta involved himself in a convoluted form of currency trading through a company out of Austria called Ameritrust. And working with the Chinese government and friends within Iran and friends within among other places, Russia, Wanta accumulated $27 trillion. Now, when the stories initially broke with on the internet with a number of people many years ago, they saw 27 and thought it was all crazy. Wanda was went into hiding after the end of the Reagan administration. He had what we would call poor relationships with George Herbert Walker Bush. That would be generous. If any of you can't figure out why that is, but he believed that money that Reagan wanted to put aside to pay off America's national debt and to finance the rebuilding of the United States for a century, the Bush family wanted to steal all of it. Wanta got a diplomatic post from an African country as ambassador and moved to Switzerland. There he was kidnapped at the orders of the Bush family. His records and accounts seized. $27 trillion essentially disappeared. And Wanta was shipped back to the U.S. and put in prison, ostensibly for income tax violation in the state of Wisconsin, a charge now just totally shown to have been basically kidnapping and black site for Wanta, where he was tortured, beaten. I was introduced to Lee Wanta by a director of the Central Intelligence Agency who asked me to look after him some many years ago, saying that Wanta was a valuable patriot and that they needed someone that could make sure that he stayed safe and that no one hurt him. And that's the level of people, and they had to come to me because there wasn't anyone else inside government who could do this. And I'm not sure I've told before either. Now, for those people who don't believe in Wanta, Stu can tell you about a telephone recording. Former Tennessee Governor Sundquist and the other person's name I'm blocking out called Lee Wanta on the phone a couple of weeks ago now, and left. And when Wanta didn't answer, they called in a conference call. They talked to each other while the recorder went on. This is where the daily cost part comes in. So excuse my convoluted stories, but I hope they have a delightful sort of flow to them in their own way. They left 6 minutes of recordings here, and Sundquist is a potential GOP presidential candidate, and now is announced. The party announced that he is going to head the Republican Party's effort toward introducing budget reform legislation after the upcoming elections. So this is the financial chief for the Republican Party and presidential candidate, who we have 6 minutes of recordings which are sent to the FBI and White House, and we dare anyone to prove that these aren't exactly what we say, asking for up to $30 billion worth of bribes, although they bid it down to $5 billion later. And those bribes, as we understand, and Stu, you can explain this to people at some point, were to be arranged through Cuba, handled by Bain Capital, and paid through banks in the Cayman Islands.
That's true, Gordon. We've got John Stokes just joined us because he wants to throw some questions about Leo to you. But that's all true.
And John, go ahead.
Hey, Gordon, thanks. And by the way, I understand you guys had over 2 million listeners on last Wednesday's program, and it was had such a great impact, and it's such an important story. I replayed that whole audio tape of Leo's and your interview on Friday.
I want you to play it. I want you to play it. I want you to play it every hour you're on the air. This is, by the way, this is directions to our 12 radio host here, of which John is a premier guy here. But I want this played because here's why. When we had an article put in the Daily Cost, and that's a minor lefty blog here, claiming that we fabricated this tape. Well, the audio quality on this is perfect. Perfect audio quality, and we dare anyone. We have the original electronic recordings of this. They have been turned over to the FBI. Any news organization that wants this can have, and the ones we have are very high quality. They can look, you can absolutely voice print Governor Sundquist on here. Totally voice printing. He is heard all the time. He's on the Sunday talk shows all the time. Any idiot can do a voice print with their telephone now. So go ahead, go get our YouTube, which is high quality audio. Get one of his recordings, and he's got many on YouTube. Download the voice print app, and anybody can play cop. Now, you want to play games with us, Daily Cost, you minor little chicken shit organization. Now that we've exposed that you're not the Democratic Party at all, or the Republicans at all, that you're just another little organization, part of organized crime. Now, John, excuse me for that. I'm having one of those moments. Go ahead, John.
Okay. The tax liability that Leo talks about would be potentially $20 million of a windfall revenue for the Treasury.
$20 trillion. $20
trillion. Now,
trillion.
I don't know what the law reads, but you would think they would pay off the national debt instead of going.
No, let me explain national debt to people. Our national debt is sitting somewhere between $16.5 and $17 trillion last time I checked. But I also checked, here heaven forbid as an economist, I checked, and only $10.5 trillion of our national debt can be affirmed to actually exist, meaning that it's underwritten by Treasury obligations that the U.S. has, our real national debt. What we found during the last few years, and this is during President Obama's launch here. Now, we had trillions of dollars disappear during the Bush administration. More than just the national debt. The U.S. economy was mortgaged for hundreds of trillions of dollars in what you would call toxic derivatives. And this is invisible debt created out of air to make sure that the American people would be impoverished till the end of time.
Okay, quick question. Now, as far as I know, there's no constitutional requirement that they take that money and pay off the debt, but let's assume they did, and we have zero national debt. What would happen to our economy, because all currency that's issued is debt-based? If we have no debt, what would happen to our currency?
The Federal Reserve, without the income, the Federal Reserve would collapse.
And a quarter of our budget, I understand, goes to pay the interest.
It would collapse on its own weight. There would actually have to be, the Federal Reserve would have to actually borrow from its member Rothschild banks in order to keep going. Now, for those who are unaware, and I don't think it's any of you guys anymore, the Constitution of the United States states, clear as a bell, that only Congress has the right to print money, coin money. The Federal Reserve, established in 1913 by Paul Warburg, and there's a book on this called The Creature of Jekyll Island, and nobody wants to read the whole thing anyway, so I'm not going to ask you to, but it's downloadable, and you can at least scan the thing, and that's all any of you are going to do in the real life, and that's frankly all I ever did with it.
You know,
But,
most people don't remember that the Titanic was sunk to kill the bankers that were on their way back to stop the Federal Reserve.
And that's a conspiracy theory, an attractive one, and quite possibly correct. Let me jump in the middle of this here and dump some things on you, John, while I've got you here. Now, Stu's holding some information that he's gotten from sources at the NSA that's very important. The best thing about Stu's information is this, that it checks out as real. Not everything that everybody gets is real. I manage the world's largest private intelligence agency. If you want to see some of the people who work for me, take a look at the editorial staff of Veterans Today. Just look through the editorial board. If you want to see just some of the people who work for it. Some. And it goes a lot further than this. This is why when I think about being challenged by the ignorance of the daily cost, this is a joke, by the way, John. But Veterans Today, if it chooses, is less than 1 year from going nuclear. That Veterans Today itself has more nuclear weapons designers on staff at Veterans Today than the government of Iran. We have more. And I can guarantee you this, knowing what we know, it would be absolutely no trouble at all to buy what we know to be at least only 4 grams of plutonium. We could create a 1 kiloton nuclear weapon with that.
John, mute your Skype mic. Mute your Skype mic and mute it. We're getting all kinds of feedback here. Please. Thank you, sir.
Who are you talking to?
I was talking to John Stokes. He had his mute or mic unmuted. I apologize. Gordon, go ahead.
Okay, but as a minor joke here, we have published on Veterans Today over the last 3 months plans for every 3rd and 4th generation nuclear weapon, nuclear demolition device, and energy weapon the U.S. has had in plans at its national laboratories. We have altered some of the math on them so that they can't be reproduced by others, but we have published the plans, which when altered are declassified technically, that no one else has, and they're all published on VT. If you want to go into VT science education or nuclear education, and I only want to apologize if you're not a physicist, you might find yourself a little lost, but I'm telling you, take the time and look at what we've done. We have simply proven that we minimally have the ability to build nuclear weapons if we choose. As a private veterans group, we have the ability to do this. Now let me bring up an issue that's come before us that I want to get out right now, and it's a while we can. And for those of you who love recording these things or listening up, it's listen up time. This is probably 4 days ago.
Lord, please have a break right now.
Let's hope we come back after the break.
John, are you there?
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that. I had mute on because sometimes I get the little areas on the breaks actually will pour over the commercials, which is things like me asking, "Where's lunch? Is the mailman here yet?" Or "Can you make that dog stop barking?" Those dramatic things like that. This is a listen up. I'm going to try a 5-minute run. John Stokes, you still out there?
And I wanted, when you're done, I want to ask you a question about this made-for-TV boogeyman called ISIS.
I think I do a TV show on ISIS here. It's going to be in Arabic. So we'll be in, and I'll be lip synced in Arabic here on Al Alam Eastern Standard. For any of you who want to catch this at 3:20, I'll be on Al Alam Network for probably about a 6-minute interview on Iraq, and I'll be in English, but I think I'm usually lip synced. Have heaven forbid. I've got a translator, Askar, who does just a great job of that. People think that he is me in much of the Middle East because I'm lip synced by the same guy here. It's like Mexican soap operas. Anyway, this would be a fairly major leak. I'll preface this. This is a very major leak. A couple of days ago, the government in the Ukraine accused Russia of hitting their troops in Lugansk and elsewhere, particularly in the Lugansk airport, with tactical nuclear weapons. The Russians denied this in ITAR-CAS, saying that, I'll paraphrase it, you should go back to school and learn the effects of nuclear weapons. Well, I have the photos, and I sent them to friends at the IAEA, and this is one of the groups that works with veterans today, and this is part of the United Nations. It's the International Atomic Energy Agency. I won't say that they're a VT affiliate now, but they're pretty close to that now. We're a good source of information for them because they use our private intelligence groups in doing their nuclear non-proliferation work, because we have people that watch airports and things like this. This is what private intelligence people do, just so you know, that if you walk through an airport, somebody working for our intelligence group, not VT, but our commercial, publicly traded company, which is an intelligence agency, will have you scan with. And I think we brought up before, if you want to know what you just ate for lunch, ask me later. I can probably tell you. It's just that nosing into everybody's business for no reason is wrong, and we don't do it. Anyway, we'll get down to where this went. The Russians may or may not have used 2 tactical nuclear weapons, but people have said they did. Not my issue. We do know that a factory exploded in outside Donetsk 2 days ago. Now, the films of that are with the IAEA. We talked with them, and they said they have not yet received samples of from the site, and they're waiting on samples, or they were then. That their assumption was initially, and this is this is because people will tell me stuff they won't tell the press, obviously. But they said it looked to them as though the site were hit with a Lance missile. A Lance missile is a Cold War missile built by the United States with a range of about 100 miles, and it carries a small single nuclear weapon, and it's used for destroying. If you go Lance missile, you can look it up on anywhere you want to. I suggest you do that. It's fun. That they're for destroying airports and factories. Now, the only country still using Lance missiles and that has the capability of delivering those warheads is Israel. As a background, we have people, our airport watchers in Tbilisi, Georgia, said that a system may have been delivered in Tbilisi that could have, listen to the language here, the may and could have, okay? This, you're talking to intelligence people here. Could have been taken by trawler, escaping satellite oversight, and that area is under satellite watch continually. And the reason I'm mentioning satellite is this: when you land in Tbilisi, because satellite watching Georgia, in order to have the resolution you're seeing on some of these photos where people can see a tank, that takes the satellite down from 300 miles to only 10 square kilometers to get that degree of resolution, which means that none of those passes would be covering the Tbilisi airport. It is possible, not proven, that such a missile system could have been flown by an Antonov Freightliner, a huge airplane, largest in the world, into Tbilisi, which we have pictures of the plane. I've got the tail numbers. We've published those. We know that it's under military guard and doesn't belong there. Okay? Could have been taken by a trawler back into Ukraine and used to nuke this factory. The IAEA says that they believe this is the weapon used. and that a nuclear weapon was used, but they're waiting on samples to test. Either way, there was a Russian response to this. When Edward Snowden went to Russia, he brought the keys to the kingdom with him. That's why he's still there. Snowden will not be going to prison. Snowden will be living in a Moscow apartment with hot and cold, running anything he wants. And heaven forbid, you know, as much as I don't find WikiLeaks to be real or credible, although we occasionally have gotten useful information, but mostly a lot of disinformation comes out of WikiLeaks. Snowden has not been the case. There's been some distraction there. But all of the Snowden leaks haven't gone to newspapers. They are far too classified, and they are spent differently. Snowden's highest classified leaks, you never see them. Why would somebody, you know, be given asylum if all they did to say is the NSA has been spying on the Germans? So, you know, I spy on the Germans. You know, who trusts the Germans? Nobody trusts the Germans. Ask the Jews about that. They don't trust the Germans. Ask them why. You know, they'll tell you. They'll tell you all they want. But Snowden had a number of things. On June 4th, I was sent my first portion of the 2003 Department of Energy 9/11 report, citing that the World Trade Center was destroyed by nuclear weapons made with materials that were taken from the Hanford, initially built at the Hanford reactor, and materials stolen from the Pentex facility, where these warheads were taken to be reprocessed into fuel, and instead were stolen. Now, I won't say that it mentions the brother of President George Herbert Walker Bush, an individual who may have died in 2010, as being responsible, in addition to Victor Bout, an international arms smuggler, and the Israeli government, or that the weapons were smuggled through Houston, they were stored in a fertilizer plant that was blown up, or taken through the Canary Islands. I won't say that I have photographs and records of all of this, but I do.
Let me jump in here just 1 second for all of our listeners who aren't up to speed on this stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon. Every nuclear explosion or device has a DNA fingerprint on it. We can tell where it was made, how much plutonium, uranium was in it, and the country of origin. Is that correct?
Yes, and this is the issue for now. We're gonna show how Able Danger comes into this. Able Danger, the Able Danger investigation began after the IAEA cited the Oklahoma City bombing as a nuclear event, that a small tactical nuclear weapon was used. And said, how can you prove that? That there is no way you can make a ammonium nitrate to fuel oil, ANFO they call them, an ANFO weapon does not ever, ever, ever leave a crater. Cannot leave a crater. Only a nuke will leave a crater. ANFO weapons don't have that kind of explosive capability. Or, I mean, it's not even close. So it's cited it as a nuke, and if you were to want to find out what another nuclear explosion would look like, you would look at the explosion of the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia. It will look identical, and that was a nuclear explosion as well. And
Gordon, if I could jump in here, I wrote 3 pieces on Oklahoma City. I didn't do the conclusion yet because there's some other vital information that I need to get up there, but I did point the finger on who it was and who did it and whose involvement. And it's ironic because there's a document in that 3rd story about Jesse, the attorney, suing him right now over his brother's death, and it points a finger right back at, and I'll say who it is, Mark Hoslaw of the FBI in Denver. Let it happen.
I have the names. Stu, I have the names of the people directly involved in doing it. I have them. They're in the Able Danger documents that the Russians just sent us. And we're going to be publishing on this, whoever has the guts to do this. But Able Danger is an investigation started by the Clinton administration. As soon as it started, Monica Lewinsky, who's listed in the Able Danger documents, by the way, is listed as a Mossad agent, or Mossad asset more appropriately, was put into the White House to blackmail President Clinton, who we'll say used poor judgment. At least he wasn't caught bringing rent boys in like the Bush family does. Poor judgment just the same. And that this whole thing was done over stopping this investigation of Oklahoma City. This investigation was initially run by John O'Neill for the FBI and Roland Carnaby. John O'Neill and Roland Carnaby, both those people are dead. The investigation also had an office in the Pentagon where it investigated the theft of nuclear weapons from the Pendax facility with information it received from the IAEA, and that facility, and the theft of over $2 trillion from the defense budget. Now, this is a facility that was struck by a airliner, missile, whatever you want to say, bomb on 9/11. Looks to me like a Tomahawk missile hit it. We are told within the documents that the story that Dmitry Kolozov had been given about the attack by a Granite missile is disinformation, that it was a Tomahawk. And that is in these documents, mentioning Kolozov, by the way, who's a political prisoner in Thailand right now, and a good friend of mine, excellent person, who has done a lot of excellent work and who has our continued unabated support. Though not everything he says is correct, so much of it has been that he's just an outstanding individual. The report cites that Able Danger, now this is why we talk about Able Danger. Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, the U.S. Army, went on Fox with Judge Napolitano, reporting what he knew about Able Danger, that it involved why the CIA didn't act on information they had about a group of Saudis later known as the, quote, hijackers, unquote. We have no reason to believe that anything Schaefer did was wrong and that he only gave information he had. We have DIA files tied to an investigation inside Afghanistan on Schaefer, which are based on rumor and innuendo and don't necessarily need to be made public, although we have them. I think they're libelous. And I also don't know that they're true, although they're DIA files. I don't that they attack him. I don't know that to be the case. I have found since that time that Mr. Schaefer and a Mr. Peterson are working for a small think tank that is very mysteriously funded now, and that Mr. Schaefer has attached himself to Alex Jones and InfoWars, still putting out this contained version of Able Danger. I will tell you what the real Able Danger says. The real Able Danger was established after the Oklahoma City bombings to investigate a group that included a rogue organization within the CIA, Israeli and Saudi intelligence, and that Able Danger begins, the pre-report begins by listing the CIA, and the CIA was also part of the Able Danger investigation, I will tell you. The CIA has a left hand and a right hand, and that's what compartmentalization leads to. But that the CIA, the Mossad, and Saudi intelligence were operating inside the U.S. as terror cells, and that these three organizations had called themselves a code name, and that code name describing the CIA, Mossad, and Saudi intelligence is Al-Qaeda. If any of you want to stop for a second here about this, that Al-Qaeda is a code name for an organization of CIA, Saudi, and Israelis working together within the U.S. The investigations of Able Danger went this direction. They investigated the theft of nuclear material. They investigated the Department of Energy, stating that a high-ranking individual within the U.S. Department of Energy, perhaps the director of the Department of Energy himself, was an Israeli agent and made available to Victor Bout and those working with him, which could have been the brother of a president of the United States, and the Prime Minister of Israel, mind you, himself, along with the Prime Minister of South Africa, at that time, was directly involved. Okay? That
now,
this is
Gordon, the recent alleged beheadings, and we can get into that if you want to, but that's not pulling our chain sufficient enough. For the last month, Fox News and CNN and all the others have been beating the drum beats to continue this war on terror, fund more terrorists, bomb Iraq, but the American public, from my reading, is not quite on board yet.
You know, but
how?
John,
but they have the new capabilities in our cities. Are they ready to pull that trigger anytime soon, you think, to make people?
Let's go on and get, John. We have to get this out here. Is good or bad? However I do this, frankly, while any of us are still able, and there's an audience, and it's being recorded, we hope. Toward this, and by the way, where the hell was I anyway? Here.
You were talking about the terrorist, evil, danger, and you were going that direction.
Okay. Okay, the evil, and I've actually, why did I go in front of the computer, and why did I just go in and pull up the report the Russians sent me? I guess I can do that. I'm pacing around my dining room here, and I can just simply drag it up here. I've been emailing it to myself to keep it swapping around. Okay, with a do not resend on it here. Let's open some documents.
We're talking about Victor Bout a minute
ago. Here, let me start through what I have. I get this out quickly. It lists as the people who planned the destruction of the World Trade Center. And the 9/11 attacks were partially done, we had listed as nuclear blackmail, but also to stop the able danger investigation, which covered the theft of over $2 trillion and the theft of 350 nuclear warheads. Going back to where I was a second ago, now that the brain's working again, the caffeine has gone there and found a brain cell that hasn't exploded yet. The Department of Energy, this is critical here, and we're busy doing this detail stuff, so the Department of Energy was supplying information on nuclear pits, that's the center of a warhead, that were being sent to the Pentex facility in Amarillo, Texas, to be made into fuel. Some of these pits were configured in such a way that they could be remanufactured into nuclear weapons. Some of them had deteriorated to an extent and were of a configuration that if someone tried to remanufacture them, that'd be the last thing they ever did. So these pits that were taken out of there. If you went into a nuclear weapons reprocessing facility.
Hang on, we'll be right back.
Discover what's really going on in the news that mainstream media won't tell you. Are you frustrated with your elected politicians? Get the news behind the news at truthradio.com. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when you want to. truthradio.com. The truth is out there. All you have to do.
You are either a person who needs help, a person who doesn't need help, or a person who doesn't need help and doesn't really care about anybody who needs help. Or maybe you're a member of the fourth group, a person who doesn't need help and really enjoys helping other people. Now, if you're in that last group, you have enough to live on and you really do enjoy helping other people. I want to invite you to visit our new website, www.enjoyhelping.com. That website is intended to be a kind of Craigslist gathering place for people who genuinely need help and want to tell you in their own words about their need, and then you come to their rescue and contact them, figure out if they're really genuine or not, and provide them for help. This is a meeting place for people in need and people who enjoy meeting needs. Enjoyhelping.com. That's www.enjoyhelping.com.
Centuries numbered, 10 times, 10 times. 10 times, 10 times, 10. 10 times, 10 times, 10.
All right. Today we're listening to, well, Jim Fetcher, Gordon Duff, Stu Webb, and a few others on a show recorded just a couple of days ago. And we've told you here about a murder plot. They're trying to go after Leo Wanta, Ambassador Leo Wanta. It's all coming from Veterans Today. All of this is going to be into the October issue of the Free American, which can be yours for $2.99, probably by Friday. I should have it all done now. And we're talking about what's happened. The criminality of those within our government makes the whole idea, for me, it makes the whole idea of trying to solve this corruption by voting them out to be simply ridiculous. What we need is a revolution, and not a communist-style revolution like you're seeing in Syria or Libya or Iraq. This is the Jewish, the New World Order type of revolution. Fund both sides. This is the banksters funding both sides. What we need in the United States is a restoration, and the people, the militia, is the people of this country. So it doesn't matter whether you got a group, whether you got a name, whether you got somebody's permission. You are the militia. You. Every able-bodied male between the ages of 18 and 45. We've got a plan. We've got ways to do this. We can go back to electric cars that they took away from you almost 100 years ago. We can run on hemp and hydrogen. Took that away from you too. Made it illegal to have hemp, to grow hemp. In one state now, you can at least plant a money tree in your front yard without having to worry about the cops kicking in your door. We've got answers. Now all we got to do is take it to every state. And what we're talking about, and this is what they're afraid of. They tell you, they've come right out front and tell you, oh, it's a lone wolf. The lone wolf. The independent. The person that's got enough intelligence to question orders, to question the mainstream news media. This is why I'm playing Veterans Today. This is why I put out the Free American. It started over 20 years ago. I need your help to continue. They want to call me anti-Semitic, and we're going to deal with that. Matter of fact, I'm going to cut Gordon off right now and go to somebody else that appeared at Poker Face's event, Jim Trafficant. Jim Trafficant's of Youngstown, Ohio. And he's tried. They put him in prison. They put him in prison for trying to tell you the truth, for standing up against Israel. And he says Israel uses us like a whore. I want you to listen to this man.
And everybody surrender. How about it, Joe?
Yeah, you better believe it.
The government is very powerful, and if you're targeted by powerful branches of the government in America, you suffer. A lot of people don't want to believe that. They don't believe that until their life and their freedom is in jeopardy. I could have had a pardon. All I had to do was ask for it and say that I was guilty of the crimes that they convicted me of. And I told them to shove it up their ass. Excuse my mouth.
Credit for that. That's all right.
You keep your pardon. I wasn't guilty. And now, keep this in mind, no physical evidence against Jim Trafficant.
Trafficant served 7.5 years in prison. He was released September 2nd, 2009.
I want to say this to you.
Oh, I read both of those books.
For the learned person that's listening to this, being the #1 target of the Justice Department and the IRS since 1983, he came out of trial, a 6-year investigation of me. $15 million to the taxpayers. That's what it cost them. Over 250 federal agents following me around. All the time that our World Trade Center and Pentagon were being attacked, they were following Jim Trafficant. They voluntarily admitted at trial that they made no tapes, audio or video, on Jim Trafficant. Now, if you believe that, then I've got some swampland in Florida. And the reason is very simple. It's like a former Secret Service guy, Mike Robertson, said. Trafficant committed no crimes. And he could have used all their boxes of tapes against them. They're all exculpatory. And that's where it is. And now it's coming out to pass, where several people admitted they were pressured to lie. Several admitted to others confidentially that they lied. The government wouldn't allow their testimony. Now a juror is very upset because he wasn't able to hear the testimony of those people. So here you have a man that was convicted, if I were guilty of those crimes, with no evidence.
Well, how about the FBI?
Unbelievable. Well, I wasn't locked out politically. I was put in prison. They couldn't have beaten me with a gun. Now they redistricted here. I have no money. They keep me off the ballot with a funny count. There's only 7 weeks left with no campaign fund. So they did a pretty good job on me. And we've got a corrupt system. I was the #1 target in the country, the Justice Department, the Internal Revenue Service, and American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. I brought home John Deminick from Israel. I proved he was innocent, and they've hated me ever since. And they finally put me in prison. They have a stranglehold on it. I said that on the Greta Van Susteren show when I got out. I was probably the hottest interview in the country. But when I made that statement, you didn't see me on TV no more.
I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
Explain to me what you see as, why you target or why you have a grudge against the Israelis.
The grudge is not necessarily a grudge. It's an objective assessment that no one will have the courage to speak about. They're controlling much of our foreign policy.
This is Jim Trafficant talking to Greta Van Susteren, probably on CNN.
They're influencing much of our domestic policy. Wolfowitz, as Undersecretary of Defense, manipulated President Bush #2 back into Iraq. They pushed definitely to try and get Bush before he left to move into Iran. We're conducting an expansionist policy of Israel, and everybody's afraid to say it. They control much of the media, they control much of the commerce of the country, and they control powerfully both bodies of the Congress. They own the Congress.
Are you an anti-Semite?
No, I'm not. And that's exactly what they're going to say, and I expect that. What I am is an American. You see, I think America comes first, and we have a one-sided foreign policy in the Mideast.
But when I made that statement, you didn't see me on TV no more. Now, let's just think about how powerful they are. Look at all the talk show hosts. Some are very conservative, some are very liberal. They're diametrically opposed on every issue, but they all sing out of the same hymn book on Israel because they control our government. They control our media. They control the finances of this country. And I'm not anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. I think Israel, in their aggressiveness, is going to end up hurting their country in the long run. But America has gone too far now. We haven't been objective in the Mideast. We've invited and we've in fact imported terrorism to our shores over our policies.
This whole apparatus to push this notion that 9/11 was Al-Qaeda.
I really don't want to get into all that except to say this. The more I read about it, the more troubled I am. On or about the time that 9/11 occurred, I was beginning to get a lot of information about 9/11. The next thing you know, I was indicted and hauled away. But there's some real questions I have on building number 7. There's some real questions I have on building number 7. Some real question I have on the volatility of jet fuel being able to cause such structural damage to such steel girders, and I just have some real doubts. And from my people will say, Jim, you're just so negative about the government that you're always looking for the dark side of it, and really I'm not. But there's some real troubling questions about 911. So as an old sheriff, I always looked at an incident from one angle. Who benefits? And I'll tell you something, I don't like what I see, and I'm reluctant to even say what I see, because I've been branded so damn bad, I'm like a Texas steer. Look, the first 2 spies we had moved America to re-attack Iraq. The last 2 spies that were just released by the Obama administration literally just turned loose from prison, saying, yes, they spied, but they don't think their intentions were bad. They were manipulating America to attack Iran. Now look, Israel's used us like a whore over there. And the Arab people over there hate America. It's just a matter of time till our policies started to import these tragedies. How could they fight? They're like the old Indians.
That assumes they did it, though.
Let's say this. I'm not assuming anything. Let's say this. How could the Indians fight cannon and repeating rifles with bows and arrows? So they had to become terrorists.
That's assuming they did.
Kill you in your sleep. Attack you. Surprise you. Ambush you.
You don't still think that, though, do you?
Hear me, though. Hear me. These nations that are bitter against America, they have no military might. They have only one way to fight. And the only way they have to fight would be through terrorist acts. But I think some of these terrorist acts might just be perpetrated by other people who want to see America then retaliate against the so-called terrorists. So I have my doubts about this whole thing. I always look to see who benefits. And I have one thing. Israel has certainly benefited over there. Now, what's next? Lebanon's whacked. Iraq is whacked. Afghanistan, we got our guys dying now in Iraq. And Afghanistan, they're coming back in body bags. What's next? Iran? Syria? Is there going to be anything left? Egypt over there singing out of the same book as Israel. They're scared to death. But if you're a Palestinian throwing rocks across that Gaza Strip and West Bank, how do they fight those machine guns and automatic rocket launchers that the Israelis have? I was there when Wellstone was there, yeah. Wellstone had a courage about him, and he wasn't afraid to speak out, and I admired him for that.
Use of force right now, which is what the resolution before us calls for. In the midst...
You got to be very careful. The government is very powerful, and if you're targeted by powerful branches of the government in America, you suffer.
Could be a very costly mistake for our country.
A lot of people don't want to believe that. They don't believe that until their life and their freedom is in jeopardy. It's just the policies have gone wrong. It says the Congress shall coin the money, and we don't. We have an independent entity. International bankers control our money. Let's tell it the way it is, with powerful hands that reach in on it, number one. Number two, we have a trade policy. Our Constitution is clear. Congress shall regulate commerce with foreign nations. Regulate absolutely means that the different variables of economic activity have to be quantified and adjusted to provide us with an opportunity. Right now we have a $750 billion trade deficit. Forget the budget deficits. Now there was no mightier nation, hear me, than the Soviet Union in one regard. That was a dictatorship, totalitarian. That KGB and that government, you'd come up missing if you opened your mouth. But when that economy got so bad, the opposition was like the wind, and you can't stop the wind. And Soviet Union fell apart. Don't think that cannot happen over here. You're going to see states that are going to start saying, we're tired of sending our money to Washington, D.C. I'm coming out with a book. My book is called America's Last Minute Man. I was known for my little statements on the House floor. And I projected a depression to turn of the century. And it lasted a little longer because the Clinton administration was very lucky. You had the computer internet explosion, and everybody's buying a new computer every 30 days. And it's sort of like the old Barbie doll effect with Mattel Incorporated. It just kept generating and generating. Then it ran out. Now everybody got a computer. Everybody's got a television. And it's bottomed out. And that television is being made in Indonesia. And most of these other products are being made in China. In the country, we become a colony again. We export raw materials and we import finished products. And America is in trouble. America is bankrupt. And my speech on the House floor in March of '93 states exactly why. You're on our own little cell phone. This is the Jimmy T and the Joey L cell phone. How you doing?
Not as good as you.
Hello, American Bandstand. Sing out of the same hymn book on Israel because they control our government, they control our media, they control the finances of this country. And I'm not anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. I think Israel, in their aggressiveness, is going to end up hurting their country in the long run. But America has gone too far now. We haven't been objective in the Mideast.
Let's go back and see what else they've got to say. Veterans Today, Jim Fetzer and Gordon Duff will be speaking
a nuclear fuel facility. And you thought you could just go in and just grab stuff off the shelf. Give me 50 of those plutonium meg things. Okay. If you don't have detailed, specific, exceedingly classified information about the makeup, the chemical makeup and design of those weapons and their current condition of each one of those 350 pits that was taken, you couldn't take them because it would be an utter and absolute waste. You couldn't make anything out of them. They'd be junk. They began cherry picking, and this was to rebuild the Israeli nuclear arsenal after the Dimona reactor crashed somewhere between 1988 and 1994. We don't have the exact date. And one of our guys was in the reactor there on behalf of the U.S. government trying to find out what had happened within that reactor. Colonel James Hankey, then attaché to Israel, editor of Veterans Today, was in there with a specialized secret detector trying to find out about investigating this specific issue. But the reactor had crashed. Now, they were no longer able to produce weapons. Instead, they could just take them off the shelf in the U.S., and the only way they could do that is with the help of a high-level mole within the Department of Energy that could tell them which ones to take. This is absolutely vital. And this is probably one of our biggest national secrets ever. And if you want to think of why, talk to somebody in law enforcement. You got a friend in the FBI. Explain to them how this would work, how important this is. And I'm going to run this as we walk back into the dining room again, as I remembered this. And we're going to go back to the makeup of the group involved in running this organization, which, by the way, is responsible for the Franklin scandal. This group controls members of Congress through running gambling money through Las Vegas and Macau, through running prostitution and rent boy groups across the U.S. and through Washington. It runs a massive blackmail organization run out of Cuba. And Stu has confirmation from the NSA on this organization. This organization works, handles its cash through Bain Capital, and the world's largest retail chain aids them in
Bain Capital, Mitt Romney, Clear Channel, Mitt Romney.
Doing this through banks that it owns. But this is a massive money laundering operation, and Stu will be able to report on things that apply to this. But
Gordon, we've got probably a minute or two before a break comes up. I want you to continue, but I want you to hold on and get all this out to us right after the break as well. But go ahead.
I'm going through the list here of, we have the first director of Homeland Security was listed as the head of what we would call Al-Qaeda, the real
Chertoff?
Osama bin Laden.
Was this Chertoff?
I'm not saying the name.
I am.
Where the real Osama bin Laden was the director of Homeland Security. Assisting him was a United States attorney who had handled all of the 9/11 investigation.
Hold on, Gordon. There's a break. We pick it back up, folks. We get an earful from Gordon Duff, Senior Editor, Veterans Today. We're back, folks. This is the second hour, Monday, September the 22nd, 2014. This is Veterans Today Radio News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb, and this show is sponsored by John Stokes, on the Micro Effect, The Edge. And John's on with us. I have Gordon Duff on. We'll be being joined by Professor James Fetzer and Dr. Preston James. But, John, real quick, and Gordon, why we got John on here, we kind of got a problem with Skype here, overloading on the server. John, fire your question up real quick for Gordon, real quick, and Gordon, answer John's question, and then I want you to get back to what you were talking about in detail with this report, if you would, please.
Well, thank you, Stu. It's kind of weird being a guest on your own program.
You're the one that sponsors this show Monday and Wednesday, and we appreciate this, John, believe me. You've been a Veterans Today truth warrior and the first to be a Veterans Today news broadcaster, a radio broadcaster, and join the team with us. You're part of the family, and at any time you want to join us, you may.
Mr. Duff, this ISIS, L-I-S-I-S, whatever you want to call it, is purely a creation of our government, the Saudis, and Israel. And lately,
it's a creation of the exact group we're talking about, of what we used to call codename Al-Qaeda, which is the CIA, Mossad, and Saudi intelligence run ISIL, ISIS. Yes, they do. And the group of people that we're talking about initially here are still running it. The individuals that we've been listing are the people who run this organization, and this is why the government of Iraq announced today that if Americans wanted to come on the ground, that they have no interest in having anyone there, because with the involvement of these three organizations, there's nobody they can trust. Welcome to that world.
Well, this latest invasion of Iraq and Syria, it's really not getting the knee-jerk reaction that they want from the American public. The beheading, yeah, we've seen those. Those are probably fake, too. So it looks like they're setting us up for this fake boogeyman to do something very catastrophic to America to make us blindly go into another conflict. Am I right or wrong on that? And I'll listen
That's
off air.
why I'm saying what I'm saying today, because we have an indication that, and frankly, it would have happened already, that there is a nuclear threat against the United States. The Russians are aware of that. There has been an exchange, or not, because I'm not going to box with the Russians. If they're going to give me information, I'm not going to trash them. I never trash somebody that's given you a couple of birthday presents. But the Ukrainian war went nuclear, and if you don't think so, well, certainly if you're a fan of the government in Kiev, they say it has. And they're the ally of the United States. So the government allied the United States says they're in a nuclear war in Ukraine. If you want to take that stance here, whatever stance that is, like you're a daily cost reader, then go ahead and take that stance because it supports us. Any rational or truthful stance here only supports what we have to say, and nothing else. And this is just a continuation. It was a horrible mistake when the U.S. started to hand feed weapons into al-Nusra, ISIL, and had named them as Al-Qaeda, that they burned out the name Al-Qaeda, because that was a good boogeyman name to use. And the boogeyman, the dead since 2001, Osama bin Laden, he was never Osama bin. The real Osama bin Laden, as we know him, or the head of Al-Qaeda, was the director of Homeland Security. That's who ran Al-Qaeda, with the help of a U.S. attorney, cited with the investigation, with the head of a Canadian distilling family, very well known, extremely wealthy, the wealthiest family in Canada. This individual, with the help of a governor of New York, governor of New York, with a mayor of New York City, a police commissioner of New York City, were involved in the planning of 9/11, according to these documents. A New York City mayor, a New York City police commissioner, a U.S. attorney, the then president of South Africa, a prime minister of Israel, and the names go on, and a White House counterterrorism chief. The names that aren't in these documents, Rumsfeld, Ashford, Cheney, and Bush, are not listed in the document.
Could I throw some names out there, or would that be appropriate? Giuliani, Curry,
no,
police chief,
not while I'm on the air. Not while I'm on the air.
Okay, I did it. Okay.
Not while I'm on the air. Okay?
Okay.
There are classification levels on this that are not legal to list. I can only say what's there and not there. And look at the level. When you hit Q on something, it doesn't go on the radio. Let's talk about 9/11, the Pentagon. The offices of the Pentagon contained a small G2 military group, Criminal Investigation Service. That was hit under the call sign of Able Danger. They were investigating missing nuclear weapons. This group under JCS, and this is for you guys in government, this was a JCS UDP command, okay? For those of you who work in government, you'll know what I'm talking about. That 35 out of 50 key investigators were killed in that attack. And they were called into the office where the missile or plane or whatever you want to say was to hit for an emergency general staff meeting. I'm reading this. That was running late. Okay? Now, you just saw this, I think, done on a couple of TV shows, including the show Homeland. They ran the same plot. 35 of 50 investigators from Able Danger were killed on 9/11, along with John O'Neill, and later Roland Carnaby was murdered by a Mossad agent in Houston, Texas, who was also a Houston police officer. And I have that in the original, the notes, and these are the amended notes after the original 9/11 report on 2003, the real 9/11 report, not the cover-up. There's a mention here of a General Meyer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at 9/11. But here's a more curious thing, and we'll just touch on this because this has got a nasty classification here. I'll just tell you what's in here, and you take it where you want to. That people they were protecting in southern Manhattan from this nuclear attack on 9/11, the CEOs of key firms in the working in the World Trade Center were invited to a private golf outing, and in reality were kept secure on an Air Force base. And that golf outing was sponsored by Warren Buffett. We're having a moment of silence here.
That's significant. Keep going, Gordon.
we can't pretty much keep going here on this. I cannot publish this document. I can tell you that this investigation, the investigation into the theft of nuclear weapons, is being handled by a federal grand jury in Houston, Texas, that is still seated. There are a number of people currently in witness protection. There are piles and piles of witness statements involving people who had driven nuclear weapons in refrigeration trucks full of cows, mind you, with nuclear weapons in boxes on the floor underneath the carcasses. Refrigeration, how nuclear weapons were sorted inside a refrigeration facility in Texas, transferred to a fertilizer plant, moved to the port of Houston. People involved have all made statements. There are truck drivers in witness protection, people that cut up cows that are in witness protection and have been there, some of them, for years and years tied to this. We have listings, and this is tied to something you'd come to me earlier about President Obama blocking money laundering. The money laundering he has been blocking for a couple of months is the most dangerous thing he's ever done, and it's tied to these issues. It's tied to Guanta and his money. It is tied to massive payoffs of people involved in 9/11 and subsequent financial crimes and the huge thefts out of the Pentagon. And it's why all these people in the Pentagon were killed, all these investigators. This is, as I've said, they called an emergency staff meeting, got the investigation staff on able danger in a room, and crashed a Tomahawk missile into them, killing 35 of the investigators and destroying computers and records. And of course, the records should have been certainly stored on centralized servers. These are not standalone computers with hard drives in them. Not in the Pentagon. The Pentagon has stacks of multiple secure mainframes, and yet they.
Hello, Art George. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Clay?
I'm doing well here. I'm doing well. Just been listening to Veterans Today talk about the Pentagon being hit, the 9/11 and all that, and goes a lot deeper than mainstream will tell you about. And by the way, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you more yesterday, but I thought that was an excellent show, and hope you guys pass it around as much as possible.
Well, yeah, what you guys talked about was all pertinent to what the information that's needed. You know,
I talk about I talk about a revolution. I said we need another revolution, and it needs to be a revolution not like the communist style, not like what's going on in Syria, where they take a bunch of so-called rebels, probably Mossad or CIA or Blackwater veterans, and gives us an excuse to go in and attack Syria. It's just all made up. I want a revolution of individuals, of people like you, people like William, people like me. You know, individuals, not groups, not Republicans, not Democrats. You know, nothing's been solved by any of these politicians, and we gave them over. The American people financed the Republicans and Democrats during the last election to the tune of $1 billion, and all that money just went into the mainstream media pockets.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason I called was yesterday when you guys were on that show, I almost didn't call because I was on the job, and I got inspectors, and I got the boss, I got laborers, everybody's on me, and but I stayed with you guys to the whole thing, but I did take a couple of notes, and I was kind of hoping that you guys, that William and I could get back on another day or something, and add a little bit more to it, because it really does feel like like you're saying, the revolution is going to come from the individuals banding together in a sense, you know. But all of our parts are diversified by being so different, but yet we're all in the same circumstance, you know.
Well, I call it the Free American Revolution, because I'm tired of being the only one.
I know what you feel like here.
I have tomorrow.
And there was one quote that you still. Huh?
I have tomorrow, and I have all next week open right now, but I've got Thursday open, and you know, be happy for you to come on Thursday, because you know, William certainly got his information out, and I'd like to hear from you.
Oh yeah, and his information still is there's still so much more that he can inject, but like I said, if I can tap into that and allow some of the Indian side of it, or my people's side of it, to be put in there also, you know.
Well, I've heard some stories that come across my desk here that some of the tribes, and maybe it's maybe it's Lakota Sioux. First of all, you've got the Lakota Bank there, which is certainly a step in the right direction, taking a step away from the Federal Reserve. And second, there's some of these sovereign tribes that are growing hemp now and promoting the growing of hemp. You know, we've got two states now.
Self-sufficient. Trying to become self-reliant and self-sufficient is a really good thing.
Well, that's what my whole Liberty Village project was about. You know, it's you know, if you can grow your own food in your backyard instead of grass, and you can put solar or wind. I mean, this whole country was settled with a bunch of windmills. When you went across the country, there were these windmills on these farms and these ranches pumping water out and growing their food and watering their food, and they were self-reliant. And that's what they don't want. The government doesn't want you to be self-reliant. They want you to take those handouts. They want you to be dependent on them.
Oh yeah, my tribe here in Washoe, over in Lake Tahoe, we're a welfare tribe, and if you the government gives us so much handouts that if we do anything that has to do with business of taking care of ourselves in the self-reliant way, they discourage that.
Well,
so they don't give you more money for welfare. They cut you off. So most people that are on welfare, they won't want to step up. They won't want to try to do anything, you know.
Well, that's kind of this is the way they do it. It's a blackmail. It's extortion, but you know, they don't have anything they can threaten me with. So that's why this is my revolution. When I talk about a revolution, I'm just talking about mine, man. Nobody else has to be involved. I don't need anybody's permission here. All I need is the support, and you know, people passing the information.
And I really appreciate the information and stuff that you put across the board here too, because I mean I've listened to you guys talk, and I've listened to things that have been going on, and you're on the right track. We just have to get more individuals to speak out on what their position is, you know.
Well, the show that we did with William Blair and you, that's just a couple of days ago. That's still up and fresh, and people are listening to it. More and more people listening to it every day. I'd love to have you up on Thursday, and then if William wants to call in, he can do that, and I can bring him up too.
Okay, good. Well, let's what time we talking again? Because I might be working tomorrow.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning, Western time.
Okay, yeah, I could probably go an hour.
That's fine.
Like 7 to 8. So.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, I'll let William know today, and that way, if they want to jump on there like that, we'll go ahead and do that. But let's go ahead and set that up.
Okay, now you've got that call-in number. That's 646-915-8774. If you misplace it or anything, it's up on the left-hand side, right under the archive show, right above Time to Revolt yet. And
okay. Yeah, I have it.
But you know what you guys are doing, what William's doing here with this introspection, this is so important. I mean, if we, and I support and talk about the whole common law jury system. If we take this away from the lawyers, from the government, and we put it into the hands of the people, it only takes 13 people, a judge and 12 to form a grand jury. We can start indicting these people, putting them in jail. I don't want to go out and shoot nobody. You know, I don't want that kind of revolution. That's a communist-style revolution. Arm the people, and the bankers arm both sides. I don't want to shoot anybody. I want to hang a few of them.
Well, we give them enough rope. They're hanging themselves right now.
Yeah, I'm also kind of the opinion that maybe that's why they're so against hemp, because they're afraid we'll use that great hemp ropes that we conquered the world with to hang a few of these traitors.
Give them more rope, yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Claire, for taking the time to. Like I said, I didn't have any work today, so I called up just to touch base with you to see where you was at.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I'll put you down. Already got you down on Thursday. Art George and William Blair was. I'll put him down there too. So if he wants to call in, he can. Because I know he's got more.
Yeah, because William and I have the InfraSpec business, and he's out of Oregon, and I'm InfraSpec out of Nevada.
You know, one of the ways they try to demonize me was starting militias in New Mexico, and I'm absolutely guilty of that. And I did it in the governor's office. That was Governor Gary Johnson, good man. And what part of the Second Amendment don't they understand, Art? You know, what people don't understand. I was in a presidential campaign back in '96, and we went up to a college in Maine, and some of the young men there, they were kind of staring at me, and they were real nervous. And I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter, guys? What's the problem with you?" Well, we heard that you're the militia. And I said, "Oh, I am. You're absolutely right on that. But here, come here, kid. How old are you?" 22. Here, take a look in that mirror there. What do you see? That's the militia. You are the militia, just as much as I am. Every able-bodied male between the ages of 18 and 45. Doesn't mean you're a terrorist group. Doesn't mean you're a criminal. It means you're an American.
Oh yeah. Well, when you say that, it reminds me of this place when we did the identity theft document, and I provided it to the tribe, proving identity theft and fraud. They said thank you, and they asked me, that all? I said yes. They said thank you, move on. So they all agreed that they know what's going on and they don't care. And it's funny because when you say that now, they turn around and call us whistleblowers because we provide the information that is the actual truth of what's going on, but nobody is willing to say it.
Well, you know, that's why I used to wonder, Art, why are they so afraid of an old biker from Texas, man? I'm not you know, I'm certainly not running for office.
Carl, because you're connected to the true spirit of nature. You know, you're not being held down by any corporate artificialism. You know.
That's right, but the real thing is, and this explains what you've experienced. If they say, well, you know, I listened to Art and William and Clay yesterday, and I think they're right. I think they're right. If they come to that conclusion, then you kind of have to look at them and go, okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yep. That's right. You've already opened the door. Now let's walk in together, and those that can take the next step and help us to do more, then that's where we should go.
Well, you know, I don't have any problem with the people that have stayed below the radar up until this point. And if you want to stay that way, that's fine. But go to freeamerican.com and make a donation there. There's a donate button there. You donated to your politicians. How about donating to somebody that really cares about you and your children in this country?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
And if you haven't been targeted in, I don't mind being the target. You know, I used to tell the FBI. I used to tell the FBI. You don't have to save some save taxpayer money. You know, you don't have to tap my phone. You don't have to surveil me. You know, just tune into my radio show. I'll tell you everything I know.
Well, like you guys said yesterday, when people want to sit back and they got these opinions, but when it comes time to speaking up and they don't say nothing, they're pretty much supporting the direction that's going in because they're not saying anything, you know.
Well, that's the whole consensus process. That's a consensus process that William talked about. You know, if you keep your mouth shut, then you're part of the consensus. You know, and that's probably one of the reasons I upset them so much, because I don't keep my mouth shut. Who's the communist that came up with this kind of legislation? Who did that? You know, who said that?
Yep.
Why are you doing this?
Exactly.
And we can't make a difference. We can't make a difference. So I've got you down.
Good. I'm glad to talk to you again. And we'll have to do this again in the morning.
All right, sir. I got you down for in the morning, and I'll put William on there too. I'll let you contact him, tell you if you got any questions or anything special you want. Just give me a call, and whatever else he wants to you want to put into the next issue of the Free American, the October issue of the Free American. I'm working on it now. I've got everything that he sent me a couple of days ago before the show. I've got all of that is laid into the magazine, and you know, this magazine, I want it to be a tool. You've done the research, you've done you've got the plans, and you know, it's like I said, even the UN is starting to agree with me. I mean, they've talked about the decriminalization. They said the drug war ain't working, and it's not. I mean, the whole drug war is a war on the American people. You know, it's like kind of like Ayn Rand told us 50 years ago. Government has no control over honest citizens, so they got to make criminals out of us.
Oh yeah, and everybody that's doing it, all the criminals are taking all this money and stuff and financing their own control mechanism. You know.
That's right. I think what we really need to do is abolish repeal all of the laws against victimless crimes. If there ain't a victim,
Right.
there ain't a crime.
Right.
All right, Art.
Okay, Clay.
We'll do it in the morning. Looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll see you in the morning.
All right,
okay.
Sir. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right. That was Art, George, Lakota, Sue, and they're making some great progress, too. We'll talk with them tomorrow. All right, what else we got here? Okay, let's go back here. We got a few more things for Gordon Duff. He's told you about Sundquist caught on tape plotting murder. Governor Sundquist from Tennessee and Senator Songstad. I believe he's from, where's he from? Okay, let's go on back and hear the rest of this.
He claims that these records were destroyed when the computer terminals tied to the mainframe were destroyed. These things not only don't have a drive on them, you can't even put a flash drive in one of them.
Can I throw something out in the way of a name of a corporation that was in charge of those records, or should I keep my mouth shut?
No, you can say that.
How about Dynacorp doing the records on the 3 point whatever it was trillion dollar, 2 point some odd trillion dollars missing?
I can't even admit I work with those guys. You're going to get me hanged here. Okay. Other things we can see, these were Navy people. Warren Buffett, we mentioned that. General Myers helped sequester key people during 9/11.
Blackjack Myers, yes.
Okay. Let's talk about during 9/11, and we have confirmed this, is that the Israeli teams around New York City were under investigation and were being watched. The dancing Israelis were living in New Jersey, and they were being watched by an FBI team under the command of Special Agent Mike Dick. That Mohammed Atta was seen meeting with them. The mastermind of 9/11, supposedly, the imaginary box cutter, pancaking building guy. There were arrests made. The only ones that were publicly held were the dancing Israelis, who were seen as part of it, and they were being investigated for smuggling nuclear weapons into the United States.
That was Urban Moving Systems, correct?
Urban Moving. There were other groups under investigation. One group was arrested on the George Washington Bridge. They had planted explosives at one of the, and let me just back in and read this, but where the cables connect into the ground. And they were arrested and released later to what was supposedly an FBI agent, but was actually an Israeli Mossad agent authorized to carry FBI ID. The George Washington Bridge was a cable stay room on the New Jersey side. The arrest was made by the New Jersey state troopers, who released the Israeli team, a 3-man team, and this was reported on CNN, and Dan Rather did the report on CBS, and I have this on my YouTube. Blow the suspension cables in the cable stay room, and the bridge would have come down. The bridge, okay. There were 2 more bombs to be used on the Lincoln and Holland tunnels. Electronic warfare jammers were placed on several high-rise buildings in Fort Lee around the bridge and down the block by the group themselves. They planted the jammers, by the way, the urban moving, but the dancing Israelis planted the jammers. Two of the RF jammers were recovered, and they're still in evidence, and they're being held in right now in Houston, Texas. The jammers. Their job was to jam the Port Authority and the New York City Fire Department radios. Remember the discussions about how the fire department radios didn't work? They didn't work because the Israelis used jammers to jam their radios. I could tell you the company that made them, actually, but that's neither here nor there because they're friends of mine. There was no radio blackout issue. The radios didn't fail. They were jammed. The New York office of the FCC recovered the jammer devices using their detection equipment and detection teams. The Federal Communications Commission recovered these. The Israeli teams tried to take out the George Washington Bridge, were arrested by, and this was, we have the recording of the arrest. We have the tape of this arrest being made, where the New Jersey State Police arrested them. And during one of the tunnel arrests, NYPD, this is on 9/11, phoned me, a detective there, because I worked there periodically for a U.S. agency, phoned me and indicated they'd made an arrest where a truck, they didn't say urban movers, but I can assume that now, seeing that there was a roadblock going into the tunnel, they tried a turnaround. The New York police, heaven forbid, though their commissioner later went to prison, and I was told, ordered the release of these individuals. Weapons and a bomb to destroy the tunnel was recovered in a vehicle, which may or may not have been an urban moving vehicle with Israeli citizens in it, heading into the Lincoln Tunnel. Similarly, the same. I don't know about whether the ones from the Holland Tunnel are arrested or not, but there are records of a plot being foiled. I don't have evidence of an arrest, but there was an arrest, and these were released to the New York City Police Commissioner. They were released to and never seen again. This is what we have factual that we can get out, and at this point, people can do with what they want, but, you know, I'm processing material. We can all look for backup on this, and we want to thank Edward Snowden. We want to thank our friends in the varying intelligence agencies of Russia for their cooperation and their good sense of humor in getting this information out to us, and for supplying us information that answers so many questions. There's nothing worse than running around half-cocked. What we found out, though, is so much of what we had learned over all these years that we've been right, not that we've been wrong. We didn't know the scope of this. We didn't know that, well, I can add, that the AIPAC spy scandal was part of Able Danger, that the investigation Gwyneth Todd was part of, was part of that Richard Holbrook's part and information was part of this.
Thank you.
Are you frustrated? You're elected
and I'm going to shut up.
With the news behind the news at truthradio.com. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when you want to. Truthradio.com. The truth is out there. All you have to do is open your mind and listen.
If you often visit us here at truthradio.com, you know that we talk a lot about the monetary.
Make a donation. Keep this show on the air. FreeAmerican.com. God bless you. Pass it on. Share.